It's the Awake Space podcast. I'm Laurie Rivers, your host, here to help you with some inspiration to get those aspirations out into the world. And today I have a very special guest who took that inspiration and made her aspirations a reality. My guest today is Wendy Mata, and we'll hear all about the journey with the book that started in an astrology consultation with me. I tell you, it's always fun to watch the people I work with grow. That's, I think, my favorite thing about what I get to do is watch people take those wonderings and their dreams and realize them out in the world. It doesn't happen with a magic wand, although in Wendy's case, it had a little bit to do with it. Uranus is firmly in Gemini for the next 7 years, and this podcast normally comes out early on a Monday morning, but we had technical difficulties. It's almost like somebody forecasted that. It's not supposed to happen to me. That's something Medium and Matilda and I joke about all the time. We make a global forecast and then, wait, hey, why is it happening here? So we're going to talk a little bit about what's coming up this week. We'll, of course, celebrate our community at the Awake Space, which really, if you haven't checked it out, please do. There's all kinds of resources there, regardless of what level you're at, from our Vibin free members all the way up into our astrology crew who help make a vibrant, supportive space. No drama. No drama. What's that like? I got a Libra moon in the 11th house. I don't like drama. So we keep things fun, enjoyable. It's not toxic positivity either. We've got the venting chamber to let all that out. So it's just a good way during these crazy days to connect with like-hearted people. And that's part of what makes us able to realize ourselves as being in a supportive environment, not with a bunch of people who are competing or trying to drag each other down. It's important to me. I'm trying to decide if I can get next week's podcast done this week. And that is because I am taking off to parts unknown. Now, I'm going to the UK, I'm going to France, Belgium, Germany, and hopefully I can make it to Prague between May and June. My daughter and I are going to be recording a bunch of stuff that I can't do on my own. Funny enough, we got to come together as people to make things happen. No person is an island, no matter how capable you are. So my daughter and I are meeting up. You're going to see a ton of fun content. We're going to put a lot in the can. And I'll be working on the 2027 year ahead while I'm out there. But since I'm traveling, and this is a fun working trip, well earned. I haven't taken off for a road trip or for anything in years. So we're going to be doing that, and it'll be astrocartography month. I've just got the article done for the May magazine on astrocartography, what it is, and I'll be showing it in real time. The thing I get a little bit frustrated with, and if you're in the Patreon, you know, is a lot of people treat astrocartography like it's separate from astrology, and it's not. Jim Lewis was the creator of astrocartography. He was a brilliant mathematician, and he laid relocation charts out on a map. But people act like it's a whole different subject, and it's not. And in fact, if you go to AstroSeek and you pull up the map, when you click on a spot, it relocates your chart. It's not just the map. The map only gives you a certain amount of information. And in my experience, it's always better to also look at the relocated. And yes, it can have an impact while you're traveling. You'll see where things go better and where things might be bumpier, as I will be talking about in May. Just because you pack your bags and go to another place, it doesn't mean you haven't brought some of the schmutz in the bag, right? We take our issues with us. So now how we deal with them can be very, very different. So there we go. All right, without further ado, get your tea, get your coffee, get your matcha, Get your Red Bull, get your H2O, and if you're listening to this evening, maybe have a hot cocoa with a little schnapps in it. You never know if it's cold. If it's not, get an iced tea. And whether we're snuggling up for a nice little sleep or we're heading to the office, we're getting the kids ready and have finished our homework, whether we're snuggling with a kitty on our lap and can't move because, that's the rules, or we're taking the dog out for one last bit of business, we're going to do this together. Well, we've got Venus in Gemini, and I'm looking forward to my Venus return. I don't know about you guys with Gemini Venus, but a Venus return is when Venus returns exactly to the degree and minute it is in your chart. And if you've got professional software, you can actually make a chart for the Venus return. I do that for clients a lot. In fact, I'll probably be doing some of that in the group April 30th, just a couple days away. There's still a couple spots. I'll put the link in the show notes. When we look at return charts, they give us a theme for the period of that return, from return to return. So in the case of a solar return, it's a 12-month time period. It is, in the case of a Venus return, 14 months. In a Mars return, it's 26 months. All right. And then Jupiter is 12 years. Saturn is 28 and a half years. It is a process. Uranus is 84 years. So there's no such thing as a bad return. The return gives us a theme and the things we'll be learning and growing from, or the qualities of that planet. There's a lot of misconceptions. You're not in a return the whole time a planet is in the sign. It is a return on the day that it is at the exact degree and minute, because again, it makes a chart. Okay, it makes a chart, and we don't go close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades. So all those people who think they have a Saturn return for a whole 2.5 years, never 3. Okay, that whole 3 years things comes from people not understanding the retrograde process. And by the way, when something goes retrograde, it still counts as energy. I hear so much silliness on the internet about how astrology works. It's not make it fit. There's a precision. There's places we can give a little wiggle room, but in general, there's precision to it. So my Venus return is on the 7th. And so I've made some provisions for that so that I can have a really good time. I was going to go the next week, and then I saw my Venus return, and I was like, let's check where I'm at and where it is. Because if you set the location in the right spot, it can emphasize that area of life. And it's a 9th house return right next to the midheaven, like minutes away. And since we've got multiple books coming out this year, I was like, oh, 9th house is publishing. Let's do that. Let's do that. Maybe a little more travel. Because I have a 9th house sun and Mercury, and if I'm stagnant and I don't do the travel, it's a little hard. What about my dog Malcolm? Will he miss me? Yes, he will, but he will be with his grandma. And even though, yes, he is old and those hips aren't great, grandma spoils him, and he can go in the garden cart or the golf cart that serves as a garden cart. So he'll get his good time. But yeah, so I'll probably talk a little bit about returns in the awake space community. Probably we'll see how it goes. We just finished up Jupiter, so we'll be doing Saturn. It's going to be a little interesting. I'll be 7 hours ahead of where I'm at. What a wild time on the planet. I told you that Uranus would slide into Gemini with a bang, but don't think that's going to be the energy of the whole 7 years of the transit. It won't. It just so happened that the moon in Leo was squaring off with Uranus right as Uranus moved into Gemini. And then once it entered, then the moon moved at 0 degrees of Virgo. So it was square, and that's usually pressure, boom, But yeah, and I had done a couple live streams in the Awake Space to talk about that, the week preceding. Just letting people know it's going to be tense. And it was, regardless of what was going on politically, there was some crunchy energy popping off during that time. So it wasn't just you. If you've been having a hard time sleeping over the last couple of weeks, if things have been a little wibbly wobbly for you, that is why. That is why. Will things even out? No. No, things are going to continue to be unpredictable or unstable or destabilizing for a while because we're in massive systemic change. That doesn't change overnight, but it doesn't mean it has to be bad for you. You can take advantage of this energy. The people who do take advantage of it are going to reinvent themselves. It's like a renaissance. It's like a rebirthing of self. That's what renaissance means, rebirth. So we can be creative. We can build forward. We can take our inspiration and fuel our aspirations with it. One of the things I'm excited to do is I have an interest in genealogy, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. My dad did our family history, and his paternal line is the one that is truly, really well documented. On his mom's side, the Norwegian is well documented, but on his dad's side, the French are very well documented. And we go back all the way to the 1600s, like 1602 in Rouen, in France. Some people say Rouen, but it's Rouen. And I went there in 1985 as an exchange student. I was an exchange student to Belgium, and my host mom was this wonderful elderly lady who happened to be a countess. And she took me to France for 2 weeks in July of 1985. And I got to go to Rouen and several other medieval cities. We didn't go to Paris because she said they would steal me and my mummy would be displeased. I was like, what are you talking about? But she wasn't wrong there. When we look at the Epstein files, it's so much older than those perverted people. That's why women had chaperones. We think of it as archaic, but there was a reason. So anyway, we went to Rouen, and I've actually been in the church where the records are at, and the Saint-Gara, Église Saint-Gara. So because it has really famous stained glass windows, but that's where the baptismal records are kept. How cool is that? So Sarah and I are going to do a little family history jaunt, and it was really interesting. And there's also some interesting astrocartography lines there. So this whole trip is going to be some cool astrology. I hope you follow along here. On Instagram. We'll pick up on Instagram. So follow me there. I promise I'll start making stuff. It's the same username. It's Laurie Alice Rivers. Okay. And you'll see my stuff there. I'll put the stuff in the show notes. How's that? We'll put it all in the show notes. All the social media stuff, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. We're getting it together, guys. It's been 5 years, really almost 6, of getting caught up in the cosmic tide and running to keep up and try to improve the quality. I mean, when you think about it, I started this podcast on my phone with an app called Anchor.fm, and then Spotify bought it out, and I'm going to say it got less cool. All right, it got less cool when Spotify got a hold of it. I'm now on Riverside.fm, and you can watch us for free there. You don't have to pay. You can find us on YouTube, and you can still follow along on Spotify. It's like a treat being able to do this because I work a lot of hours to make all this happen, and we're finally getting more and more help, which is great. Having people to support the work here is pretty cool. And you might notice there's something new on the shelf. That's Bertha the bear. She was a found object that a local artist near me painted and did drawings on. And in order to support the local community, I got Bertha and she called to me. I love that protective energy. So there we go. Let's see, what else do we got going on? We've got the interview with Wendy. We had a beautiful time catching up. She is a wonderful teacher, a wonderful guide, and she reminds us we're all human, and that's that we match right up there because any of the teachers going forward need to remind you of your humanity, that the flaws serve a purpose, that we're not here to be perfect, that we are spirit made matter, right? Um, let's see. Yeah. Oh, accuracy rating for the year. If you guys remember, I think I talked about it last week, but I've got somebody who's now my archivist, and they have been compiling all the evidence of my predictions because I do those every single year in the I used to call it the year ahead. Now I'm calling it preparations and predictions because I hate giving bad news all day long. It's exhausting. It's stressful. It's hard to communicate it in a way that is ethical, isn't freaking people out, right? So, anywho, Ralph put together so far on the year and for the 2026 preparations and prep, all the predictions there, 100%. 100%. Those are thematic, but I do have specifics in there, and it's 100%. And on the month by month in the what's in the headlines, we're at 91% so far, which is pretty damn good. The more you drill down into specifics, the more it's going to get wobbly. But let's talk about those statistics for a second. 50-50 is a coin toss. That's luck. Okay, 50-50 is a coin toss. 60% is considered very good. Anything above 60%, especially 70, 80% is considered exceptional. Anything above that is like really, really superb. We'll be sharing the joy with our supporting patrons who help make all of this possible. If you are in Laurie's Test Lab and up, you got notice today that you get first dibs on the 2027 event on June 28th. Not only will you get to come to the event in the fall, and look, if there's a lot of people who sign up in June, I'll just do 2 dates in December for the 2027. So nobody's going to miss anything, okay? But I do a follow-up in December. So if you join in June, you get that, but you also get the 2027 astrological planner. Thanks to Alicia the Defiant, one of our members in the Awake Space, for asking for a planner. And I said no, because I tend to say no really fast. I'm like, do you know how much work I'm already doing? I do like 20 people's jobs, One more thing. It's hard enough to get the magazine done every month. So anyway, you guys will get that, and that will be available as a print on demand as well for people to purchase separately. I can't do that one as an inclusion. You'll get the PDF. So I'm trying to fit as many budgets as I can, guys. I know it's tough out there. There is still time to join the Awake Space community if you're a brand new member. I can't do this with existing members. That's not a me decision. It is a Patreon decision. That's the platform we use. You can save 40% on annual subscriptions at the $15 and $33 level in April. We'll see what little promo I do in May. We will see. I try to keep it as accessible as I can, but it's only for the first year, and I can't change that. If I could, I would. I know. We got to make choices. I get it. So let's do some patron shout outs, and then we'll move into the interview with Wendy Mata, who is phenomenal. She's just such a wonderful guest. We had such a nice talk. You'll be able to find all of her links in my show notes. So check her out. And then at the end of the podcast, I'll talk about that full moon in Scorpio and what we can expect on May 1st. May 1st. All right. And May is a full moon sandwich. So, all right, let's get to the community news and announcements and welcome our newest patrons. All right, let's talk about what's happening in the awake space. So there's all kinds of good stuff. We've got live streams, and I haven't been live streaming on TikTok very much, and I need to up that a little bit. It's just there's been so much stuff, and I know a lot of people were dragging through the first quarter of 2026. And it wasn't just you, we all were. So hopefully with Uranus and Gemini, we get a lot more energy going here. As always, we have the astrology classes that happen monthly for Astrology Crew. We're working on aspects in the natal chart. This is a little more advanced astrology. It's like advanced beginner, solid, intermediate level. It is, aspects are not beginning. If you're just getting to where you can look at your chart and know that Venus is Venus and Jupiter is Jupiter, and you're not sure of what things mean, that's not necessarily that kind of information. I have that kind of information to all supporting patrons with the ebooks. If you don't want to join on a subscription, you can find those in the shop. And we have a hell of a good time, and we got our memes back. But anyway, I am proudest that this podcast is 100% supported by our listenership. 100% supported. No ads. No sponsors. I could go get sponsors. I got the numbers. I've got the listenership for it. But I haven't wanted to. Because then you're beholden and blah, 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 right? I don't just let any guest come on. I handpick my guests because I believe my listeners deserve accuracy. Accuracy. They deserve more than fluff. They deserve something meaty and real. And so, I get solicitations all the time from people wanting to be on the podcast because they wrote a book or whatever. Please stop. I handpick my guests. I'm picky. So anyway, so thanks to listeners like you. We are fully supported, and we don't gotta sell out to the man. We are the man. We're the woman. The woe man. All right. Big shout out to Leslie, Shira, Amelia, Deborah, Jen, Sarah, Katie, Beautiful Scars, Lydia, Jen, Hippie Mystic, Wendy, Amanda, Joanna, Molly, April, Amanda, Denise, Ash, Inovid, Tiffany, Illyria, Debbie, Cora, Lucy, Emily, Marissa, Shabnam, Gian, and I think it could be if it's phonetic, but I don't know yet. You got to let me know. B, Simpson, Ava, Christina, Sarah, Teresa, MH, Kelly, Annie, Gabriella, Shania, Tiffany, Kathy, Jackie, Barbara, Kelsey, Annie, Chelsea, Kim, Claudia, Maggie, Diane, Lauren, Tara. Thank you all. And I look forward to more. If you guys are in Europe, if you're in the UK, and we're probably going to go to York and Edinburgh and maybe head over to Ireland a little bit because I have Irish roots like almost every American. We've got some there, French, Irish, Norwegian, Prussian. Got a whole bunch of stuff there. I'm a Heinz 57. But anyway, I do want to go over. We're focusing on a couple of things. Obviously, astrology, yarn, yarn because I know the Crochet Liberation Front stuff hasn't happened yet, but we haven't had a chance to get together. But Sarah, my daughter, has crocheted a ton of stuff for us to wear. So we'll be doing CLF stuff as well. And so we're going to yarn crawl. Woo! And we're going to look at antiques and art because we're into that as well. That'll be super fun. But if you are a listener, let me know in the comments and we'll see if we can't get like a meetup and, do coffee or something. We'll see about that. Let's see. I know I'm going to be meeting a couple of people on the trip. Some of those meetings are already arranged, but I love meeting you because you listen to me. I didn't start this podcast to be a thing. I was mouthing off in the backyard on my phone with a donkey and the dogs and the crickets because I got banned off a TikTok live stream. This was like February 2021. Got banned for being naked. And I wasn't naked. I wasn't even in flesh-colored clothing. And I was so mad that I started just somewhere that I could use the famous 7 words. And once we had 65 people, just 65 people, and somebody said, I'd really enjoy this, but she rambles. And I was like, how dare you? I already announced that I'm going to ramble and say whatever I want. But I listened because I was like, well, they said I have a lot of good information and they'd like to learn. And I thought, wow, 65 people. I know we always look at the Joe Rogans and the Caller Daddies and the Mel Robbins and all those people with bigger audiences, right? But back in 2021, I thought, 65 strangers are listening to me. I couldn't fit 65 strangers in one room in my house. I'd have to have it outdoors or rent somewhere, like a banquet room. That's a privilege. That's 65 people who want to hear what I have to say, and some of you still listen to this day. So I decided to shape it. It wasn't about the amount of people. It was about being honored that anybody would tune in on a weekly basis. And so, when we want to compare ourselves to bigger shows or what have you, and you're just starting, don't. Appreciate every single person. And that attitude is what's helped us grow, right? Is I appreciate every single one of you, whether you're subscribing to the community or you tune in every week. I had a lot of messages in the last 3 weeks that made me A, cry, happy tears, and B, let me know that my work in the world does make a difference. Because sometimes you wonder, I'm sitting here in front of a mic and looking into a camera monitor and throwing it out into the ether, right? We don't advertise. I don't spend a dime on advertising. Everything is organic, which is important to me. But I had some beautiful, beautiful notes this week. I had a message from someone who said this was after our reading. Okay, so it's maybe 6 months after the reading. I just wanted to share a couple of updates since our last reading. You were right. All the right support came in. They were linked into special programs. They are sober and they are helping other people find their health and direction in life. And it's those kinds of testimonials where you're like, yeah, this is why I do it. This is helping people find themselves, come to the center of themselves, not to be self-centered in a selfish way, but to understand their connection to the all that is, their preciousness, their capabilities, the influence they really can have over their own lives. That's another. This one really made me tear up. This was a comment inside of our Patreon, and I'm not going to name names because I don't have their permission to give their name, but this is from one of our active community members. Friends, my oldest told me he was worried and having some sad feelings tonight. And To sum it up, I told him I subscribe to a ladies' podcast because she has good advice and has helped me. She says that worry is a misuse of imagination. So if you're imagining things that worry you, you can also imagine cool things that might happen. And he paused for a minute and said, okay, I can give it a try. I teared up with that because I think passing on the information, whether people tune in or not, helping your children, helping your nieces and nephews, helping yourself, that makes the world a better place. We cannot necessarily change the world all by ourselves. We can't necessarily make it kinder or gentler or more aligned. We can't force that. But when we can take micro actions, random acts of kindness, when we can share tips and hints and tricks for making it through a day, no matter how crunchy it is, we spread the energy out into the world. And that's how we change it. One life at a time, one listener at a time, and each one teach one. It's like that old shampoo commercial. I told a friend, and so on, and so on, and so on. Why do you think the mass media does what they do to make people feel helpless, that all there is violence, that all there is corruption, that all there is dominance and control? Why would that be? Why would that be? To disable your ability to take action on your inspiration to make those aspirations realized. So I want to thank each and every one of you, whether you're a listener, a free member of the Awake Space community, or a supporting member. Thank you. Thank you for helping us make a difference in the world. All right, speaking of making a difference in the world, next up, my conversation with the absolutely delightful Wendy Mata. Welcome. My gosh, it's so good to catch up with you, Wendy.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Like I said in the intro, we have Wendy, and she has come out with this really cool book. Sorry, I suck at Spanish. Bruja Curendera, and it spells rituals, ancestor work from a Mexican healer and witch. We have a story about that book.
So these must have been, I don't remember if it was my first or my second reading with you. It may have been my first. I can't remember.
It's both, I think.
Yeah, I don't remember. I don't remember. But at this point, I've had several readings from you because
Right.
of that. So it may have been the first one. But I remember in that first reading, you said, hey, you have a book in your chart. And part of me didn't believe it at that time. Not that I didn't believe you necessarily, but
Right.
that seemed really wild. But you said it's going to fall in your lap. You don't have to look for it. You don't have to find it. It's going to show up. And I wanted to write a book my whole life. And I almost signed a contract a couple of years ago with somebody, but the contract wasn't great. I didn't take it. We may have talked about that in the conversation about how I was really
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
that I didn't have that contract because it was not the right contract. And then you say, nope, there is another one and it's coming and it's about to arrive and it's going to land right in your lap. And it did.
It did. That was the best part. I love
It
those.
did. Right at the exact same time that you said with the publisher. You even gave me the name of the publisher, which is wild. Yeah, and I was not even applying to get a book with them or anything. You just told me this
Right.
publisher is going to reach out to you and it's going to land right in your lap, and you're going to get a book contract, and it's going to be out, and it's going to do great. And there it is.
That part was a little bit of being psychic. The astrology was the timing, but
Right.
I do remember the publisher popping into my head. So, and I didn't know you worked with them at all. Like you
I didn't.
teach at conferences. So You hadn't told me any of that. So I love it when these things happen, and I love helping people grow to their success. What was it like to work on this book? And tell us about the book, because you have such a wealth of experience and an honoring of your traditions. It's deeper than just, oh, look, I wrote a book.
So the book, it's really a channeling. So when
Hmm.
I got the contract, when Llewellyn is who I am publishing with, they reached out to me
Hmm.
and they asked me to write a book. And I
Hmm.
asked them what topic you want to talk about. And I say, write about anything you want. They even gave me the opportunity to write about
Wow.
anything I want, which
Yeah.
is pretty intense. So I sat down, I submit a couple of proposals. They told me which one they were interested. But really, it was all about whatever I wanted to write. So I sat down in my
Wow.
kitchen. I wrote this book in a little bit less than a month, which is crazy.
Wow.
I simply sat down in my kitchen and I opened my kitchen table to my ancestors. And I said, because I'm Mexican, a lot of our work is ancestral work. We honor our
Hmm.
ancestors. We live by the messages of our ancestors. That's how we live.
Hmm.
So I sat down in the kitchen and I asked the ancestors to show up. And I said, whoever wants to share your stories with me. So you want them
Hmm.
on the book, I'll write them on the book, and then I'll create lessons and teachings based on your stories. So
Oh, wow.
suddenly I had a line in my kitchen table. My mom, my grandmother show up, my great grandmother show up, my dad show up, cousins, uncles, aunts, lots of people that I didn't even know who they were. I did a lot of phone calls to Mexico to confirm the stories, to confirm the names, to confirm all the amazing things that they were sharing with me. Some of them really painful, some of them enraging, like the story of my grandmother. She was practically kidnapped by my grandfather. Like so
Mm.
many things, right, in my family. But they all show up to share their stories on the book. So
Hmm.
the book is a collection of a lot of those stories. And these stories really reflect a lot of the realities in our families in Mexico, but
Right.
there is also solutions. Okay, if you have
Hmm.
ancestral trauma, this is what you do. Or if you have money problems, this is what you do. Or if you need
Hmm.
protection, this is what you do. And it's all, I say to people when they ask me about the book, I say to people, I didn't really write it. Like I did wrote the book, but I didn't. I sat down
Hmm.
and I transcribed everything that they were sharing.
Right.
So
Wow.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
Powerful.
Yeah, even the wildest thing is that as soon as the book was out, it became a bestseller. And as soon as it was out, it became a top one in a bunch of different categories because people are craving the
Yeah.
ancestral knowledge, and especially in
Yeah.
Mexican culture, right? Like, there's not a
Yeah.
lot of brujeria work. Uh,
Mhm.
so, anyways, that's
There's a lot of stigma around the term bruja. It's often used. I lived in California and I don't speak Spanish very well, as you noticed. But I understand it because I speak French,
mhm.
right? So, and I can understand things and intonation. And just like the word witch in English, it's been used as a derogatory. Do you really feel like this book is a way to also like educate people on that to remove the stigma?
Yes, yes. And there's actually a note at the beginning of the book about how calling ourselves brujas is a world of reclamation.
Mm.
Because by calling ourselves brujas, we are honoring all the magical people that were rejected. So it's almost like we're as an armor. That's how we are called, and it's a bad thing. And in reality, that's our strength. That's our power.
Right.
That's our wisdom. That's our light.
Mm.
That's our guidance.
Right.
And the word curandera, so it's bruja curandera. The curandera is a healer. So it's
Okay.
curanderismo. It's the healing arts of Mexico.
Right.
It's a mix of native traditions
Hmm.
with a little bit of the wisdom that we have learned from colonization because we were
Right.
colonized, but we have learned a lot also from colonizations and from that
Right.
ancestral lineage. But it does, I think it's a little bit of a reclamation of it's okay to be a bruja, it's okay to be a witch, there's nothing wrong with it.
Right.
Yes, we may be assigned that label, but yeah, why not?
I remember correctly. Because I asked about ancestral work when I was reading your chart the first time, and I remember that, and you were like, "Well, actually," because I didn't know what you did. You came in the first time. I don't, in my booking form, just so the audience knows, I don't have any. You can give me like a note about like what you want to talk about, but there was nothing there. So we pull it out, And you do have an interesting lineage. Might have been a grandma showed up. But tell me about your lineage anyway, since the story isn't resonating. So tell me about your, I'm like, I don't know. I thought it was cool.
So what
But
you may remember may be how I became a full-time bruja.
yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's what you may be remembering.
Yes, that's what I'm remembering.
In the corporate world, I was for 20 years, I was in cybersecurity, digital forensics, and communications. I was in cell phones, and then from there, I went to cybersecurity and digital forensics. And in 2018, I went to Mexico to bring my daughter and my husband to Mexico to show them our traditions for the Day of the Dead. And in one of my dreams, my grandmother show up. I think this is what that's what you're remembering.
Yeah.
Yes, my grandmother show up and other ancestors show up, and they told me that I had to leave my job to be a bruja full time, which was, I fought that for years.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a big responsibility, and also it meant to fully reinvent what I had already built for 20 years. But in that dream, she gave me direction. She told me what to do. She told me how to do it. And since then, really, they are my guides. If my ancestors say go there, I go. Sometimes I fight it, but I still go.
Right.
But I think that's what you remember. It was the fact that all this happened because of a dream.
Wow. That's powerful. And what helped you learn to trust? Did you always trust? Were there things that happened that caused you to trust? Because a lot of us who teach, we've lived some interesting lives, and as a result, we got connected early. In my understanding, in most magical traditions, trust is essential, even though we fight it, right? We do. I mean, we'll be like, no, it's not time yet. And they'll just be like, I'm going to bug you more. But the world was about to change in 2018. We were 2 years away. Um, what made you really know to trust that?
So I asked them to show me. I said, if this is what I really have to do, you need to show me, because I need to pay my mortgage and I need to do the things in the human experience. And I am unable to leave my corporate career to do this, even though I would love to. You need to show me. So I started making candles from my kitchen. My business started as candle making, although I don't really make candles anymore. I mostly teach. And I told my ancestors, you will have to show me that I can make at least half of my salary with a botanica, because I started with a botanica, for me to give myself permission to leave. I need to see. So I made some candles in my kitchen. I made some videos of the candles, and I actually put them on TikTok. And I went to bed thinking, you really have to show me. I trust you, but I need to see.
Right.
I need to see. What did you say earlier? The refutable evidence.
Yeah, irrefutable evidence.
I love that
Absolutely.
because
Yeah,
we had another reading earlier. This is
we
why.
did.
And I asked for that. And what happened was that I went to bed and I woke up to that video going viral to over 2 million views.
Well, that was some proof.
And then over $10,000 in sales in one night.
Oh, that's where you're like, holy shit, how do I catch up with this?
Took me months.
I'm sure.
It took me months, but I couldn't say no after that proof.
Right. Yeah.
After
And I think a lot of people don't realize, like I tell people all the time, give your guides, give the universe marching orders. It's okay. But because of former religious training, they're like, what can you say to that about giving your guides like clear parameters or asking for proof, or, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, absolutely. So even when I met my husband, I actually specifically asked for the name because I didn't want it to make a mistake. I was so afraid of getting into the wrong relationship again. So I had a list of things that I said that had to be, including the name. And I ended meeting that person. We've been married now for 10 years. Everything on that list was so specific, and it all happened. But I asked for evidence. I always ask for evidence. And I always say, yes, I will do what you're asking me to do, but I need you to remember that I am living the human experience. And in the human experience, I have to have the tools to sustain my family, to sustain the community, to sustain the people that I love. Otherwise, I can't. So I ask for specifics. I ask for specific shows. I also sometimes, if I'm getting the messages, and I don't understand the messages, I ask, can you please clarify? Can you please
Right.
send me that as a visual or as a dream
Mm-hmm.
instead of a message? Or can I
Mm-hmm.
smell that instead? Can I hear that
Mm-hmm.
instead? Like I ask for different ways of spirit to show me, because I remember sometimes that on the other side, spirit is trying to communicate, but sometimes they forget that we're here humans, right? Like we're so connected
Mm-hmm.
to them that they forget that we're living human
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Right.
So for
Right.
anybody who's listening to this, hello, we must be that clear. We must
Yeah.
say, I feel you, but I don't understand you. Please clarify. Please clarify. And then boundaries. They're so important. I always tell my ancestors, please don't get into the bedroom. Don't go into the bathroom. Don't go when
Mm-hmm.
I go to the shower.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be
Mm-hmm.
very specific about those conversations. Uh,
Right.
and I say, like, don't get into my daughter's room. Don't bother my
Right.
daughter. But if I am in the kitchen, you can be always talking to me. If I am in the living room, you can always talk to me. If
Right.
I'm outside gardening, you can always talk to me. So there is
Mm-hmm.
these boundaries that we have so that the conversations stay strong and unfiltered, but without being depleting.
Right. Right. Because if you don't, then it's all the time.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're designed to do that as human beings. And I think that's something that's been disrupted. You have a membership program. You're building a new one. That's exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a membership for witches. It's
Mhm.
called Mujer Luna International Coven, where I teach the foundational work of witchcraft. And I have a second one that I just started in February, which I am really excited about, which is all about fire. It's about our
Yeah.
inner fire, honoring the faces of our fire, recognizing if we are in ember, if we are igniting, if we are in a full flame, or if we are growing, like what is happening inside with our fire,
Mhm.
with our flame, and also honoring the spirit of fire. I see fire as a guide. Fire has always been one of my guides
Yeah.
in my life, besides my ancestors.
Mhm.
How to do fire scrying, how to do candle magic, how to work with fire herbs, how to do your own fire rituals, your own fire ceremonies. And I'm really excited about it because I've been building it now for 2 years.
Mhm.
And I just put it out for the public in February. And it's
That's
really
great.
beautiful to work with other people that are also called by fire.
Wow, I love that. Metaphysically, and for what you're teaching, can you describe a little bit about what you mean by being attracted to fire? Like you're not a pyromaniac, but it's, I don't know, maybe you are. But but what kind of benefit is it to people who are interested? Like maybe they've learned some basic spellcraft, or maybe they've been interested in energy work of different kinds, and we're in another shift in this great time of change. Like the energy is shifting and has shifted, especially this is coming out on a Monday, we're sitting on a Wednesday beforehand. The energy of that weekend is a lot, because we're shifting as a society, as a global community. What can people use this for in their both their metaphysical walk and in their practical life?
So, from the practical perspective, from the inner fire, it's understanding our cycles,
Mhm.
understanding that it's okay to be in an ember phase, resting, integrating, journaling, giving ourselves permission to chill, because we don't do that a
Mhm.
lot. We forget to do that. Or understanding that we are in complete flame, full flame, like the four phases of the fire, right? Like the full flame is the last one before we go
Mhm.
into ember. And then understanding that we are in our creative power, that we are in our creative power, that we are in our passion, that we are in our creativity, understanding that that is that phase where we can create new projects, new opportunities, new abundance, new um, collaborations, like understanding where
Mhm.
we are at internally.
Right.
But then from the elemental perspective, in my tradition, we work with four elements, right? Every tradition is different, but we work with
Mhm.
fire, with water, with air, with earth. Earth, it's connected to specific frequencies, being structures and systems, and
Mhm.
sometimes abundance. Air is connected to the communication system,
Hmm.
which I think is similar to astrology, right?
Yeah.
Water
Hmm.
is connected to the emotional system, and fire is connected to anything that has to do with transformation, to
Hmm.
destruction, to light, or to spirit. So
Hmm.
being called by the spirit of fire, it's transforming our lives, giving ourselves permission to access a frequency of transformation. The
Hmm.
good, the bad, and the ugly can get
Hmm.
amplified or burned away by the fire. We can work with fire, collaborate with fire to guide our path and give us light to realize our next steps, or it can be the one that is helping us burn all
Hmm.
the junk and all the trauma and all the negative energies and all the fears that we may be carrying.
Right.
So we're doing our own process of healing using fire as a guide. And like spraying, like I love fire spraying. I love sitting
Hmm.
down by the fire and just looking to see what the flames
Right.
have to say. Some people love doing that with water. They may be water people. Some people
Right.
love doing that with earth. They may be earth people. Some
Hmm.
people may be doing that with the clouds. They may be air
Hmm.
people, right? But for me, it's always been fire.
Hmm. I love that. What would you want people to take away from it most?
To recognize that the light that we need, it's already within.
Mm. That's how you tell a teacher, folks. Because it doesn't matter the tradition. That's going to be the answer 90% of the time. But yeah, the light from within.
But you gotta
Yeah.
do the work.
Yeah. Oh, but we need to talk about this. It's serious because I know so many of us who are teachers who got kind of hit end of last year, beginning of this year. We're not alone. I mean, it's a lot of people because the energy's changing. We had to change ahead to meet it. What do you think are the top three things people don't do that would help them navigate these times? Like if they did it.
Number one is to remember that we are living a human experience and there is just so much we can hold.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we believe that we are meant to hold everything in our bodies and in our minds and in
Mm-hmm.
our spirit. And that's going to blow our channels. That is going to give us sickness. That is going
Mm-hmm.
to give us unbalance. We need to recognize when we get overloaded and know protocols to release that energy
Mm-hmm.
because we can't
Mm-hmm.
carry it at all. We can't.
Mm-hmm.
When we were souls floating on the space,
Right.
we could.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, there's just so much the skin and body can handle. So I think that that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
things we forget. Yes, that we are sacred and that we are part of the universe, but that we are living the human experience. I think
Absolutely.
that is one of them. And then the other that I think we forget is that we forget to take care of ourselves. Because usually
Yeah.
when we are teachers or guides or empaths or witches, healers, shamans, priestesses, whatever you call yourself, we take care of everybody and we forget to take care of ourselves.
Or yeah, I mean, it's okay to go a whole year without an oil change. Entertaining though, so it wasn't too bad. But
Yeah, yeah, it's that is the it's the and I think that is very important to surround ourselves with the people that will see that we're running in empty and they remind
mm-hmm.
us that we're
Mm-hmm.
running in empty. Like
Mm-hmm.
taking help is so important. And
Yeah.
we have to be surrounded by the right people. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
so lucky and grateful and blessed that I have the right people in my life that they tell me, Wendy, you need to go take a nap.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, same. Having that support is important. And this translates to the people who are starting to learn, in my experience as a teacher, I find that a lot of times people, not through lack of knowledge, like they've read the books, they've studied, but they think that knowledge is more than enough, that somehow they're on par with the person who wrote the book. That's usually not the case. I would assume in your world also.
Knowledge is just a tiny little part of it. It's the practice.
Mm-hmm.
It's the practice. And it's one of the most important parts of spiritual expansion or whatever you want to call it for me is to understand all the things that I have to unlearn So it's not all the things that I have to learn. Yes, I have so much to learn. I
Mm-hmm.
know nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, all the things that we have to unlearn, or mental programmings, or ideas that were given to us by religion or by our
Right.
society or our parents, like all
Mm-hmm.
the unlearning, and asking ourselves the question, how can I be better for the world today? How can I help our people today? How can I show up for my family today? How can I shine that light inside so that it can bring more light to the world?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And allowing yourself to be supported at the same time.
Yes, yes, because we
Yeah.
can't do it ourselves. It's impossible.
Yeah. Oh, no, it is impossible. And I think a lot of times don't realize that in this age where we're not just in a small village, well, I am, but we still are connecting in the outer world. Um, there's a lot of other mental work that goes on, whether it's computer work, doing the emails that people look forward to, writing the books, editing the book, getting it ready for publication, or creating the classes, recording the classes, editing the classes. Even when we hire things out, when we can afford to, usually you don't afford it when you first start. I still edit this podcast because I'm just fast at it.
Hmm. You've been doing
The
it for
other
so
stuff
long
I
that you
can
know what
have
to do.
edited,
Right.
right? The other stuff I can have edited because it's not going out on a Monday, right? How important do you think it is for other teachers to talk about that? And how important do you think it is? It's a two-parter. How important do you think it is for the average person coming in to understand that there are 500 other things going on, and that's why the teacher has certain hours or parts of the month where they're doing things?
So one of the things that I have experienced as a teacher, as a guide,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's the entitlement that sometimes happen when people believe that they have access to our time and our energy 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Forgetting that we are also a person that has a family, that has to take care of their needs, that has to take care of their
Mm-hmm.
community. It is really hurtful when I get to experience that. And it happens sometimes, it doesn't happen all the time, but when it
I was
happens,
gonna say it's rare, but when
yeah,
it
when it
does,
happens,
it's
it
like,
hurts.
yeah.
But I also realize that some of it comes because people doesn't know how much work it actually takes.
Right. Yeah. If somebody
I
hasn't run a
done all of it,
portal,
like build, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like what it takes to have a membership space, create a summit, create a podcast, create a
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, create, like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of it is not malice, it's ignorance.
No.
And I'm not calling
Yeah.
people ignorant, but you know what I mean? Like I am
Well,
like,
ignorance just means you don't know, right? It is ignorance because it
it's
means you just don't know. Yeah.
yes, it's like the lack of the understanding of
Mm-hmm.
how much work is behind. So I think if we
Mm-hmm.
are working with a spiritual teacher or guide or reader, astrologer or
Mm-hmm.
anything, we should approach
Coach. Yeah.
from
Mm-hmm.
the perspective of knowing that there's a lot of work behind. So if you get to work with somebody for an hour, it took that person hundred of hours
Mm-hmm.
get to that
Mm-hmm.
hour. I remember I used to
Right.
do a lot of psychic readings and a lot of psychic work. I no longer do. And I stop because it will take 1 hour before the reading to prepare to show up into that energy
Mm-hmm.
and then do the reading, and then the hour after is the hour that it took me to come back into my center, because when you are in that opening,
Yeah.
all
Oh
the
yeah.
information is coming, right?
Yeah.
So, an understanding of that, an understanding that it takes time, it takes energy. We
Mm-hmm.
all have teams, like we are doing this and we are doing it not alone. I have a team of people that are
Mm-hmm.
helping me that are fabulous.
Right.
We
Yeah.
also have support systems. Like I work with
We
Laurie.
do.
Thank you that she
Yeah.
helps me when I
Well,
need
thank you.
guidance. I have a healer that helps when I need
Mm-hmm.
guidance. We have to have all this. We cannot exist
Mm-hmm.
without support.
No, no, we can't. It's impossible. And I think we need to do more because, like, coming up in the spiritual community in the late 80s, 90s, there was a lot of you have to look above reproach, you have to be a paragon of virtue when you think of the old gurus or priestesses, healers, etc. And people weren't allowed to be human because, in part, because of the church and other organized religions making that person an extension of deity, a human extension. And so I think people still a lot of times don't understand that people like you and me who are the real deal, we're real teachers, we purposely don't do that.
Right, right, right. We are as humans as it gets and as flawed as it gets.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, because the other is unattainable. And if you met those people, like I have a friend who knew all the big names in like thought leadership and personal growth, and it was adjacent to spirituality, like Hay House people and things like that. And he was a personal trainer back then. And this is like 70s and 80s. Okay, because he's older than me. And he knew who those people were behind the curtain. And it disillusioned him so greatly. Now, I got to work with him later as his coach and as a business consultant. And he had changed, his understanding. But he goes, I walked it through the wilderness for a long time because I was so disillusioned. Um, if people are wanting to pursue a path as a witch or a healer or a support for other people, what advice can you give to them about overcoming the idea of having to appear perfect?
Don't even try. Don't even try. Don't even try. Be your messy self. Also, you are going to get to help more people in your messy self than trying to be perfect. Because by being your messy self, unconsciously, people are receiving that as a permission to also be their messy selves. The human experience is a messy experience. And the more we love the mess, the better, because that's who we are. We can't find that. Of course, have systems, of course, have processes, but also understand that that is almost like patriarchal. Like that is not allowing our creativity and our
Right.
ways to try to fit on a system that doesn't work for magical people. Of course, have systems, have a schedule, all these things,
Yeah.
but we are not perfect. And we also should not expect that the people that we're working with are perfect because they're also humans. And they
Hmm.
are also going through their own challenges and their own
Their own
health
growth, their own
problems and their
initiations,
yeah.
their own. I had a guide slash mentor, and he channeled some of the most beautiful energy. And when he wasn't channeling, and he was an amazing healer, like he was the most knowledgeable healer I've ever met. But when he wasn't tuned in, he was an asshole. And when I was, 29, when I first met him, I was like, what the hell is with this dude? And I asked in channeling a couple years in, like maybe 5 years in, because I was connected to him for a long time. And I was like, I asked like cheekily, just being, I was kind of being a bitch about it. I was like, so here you are, all connected and doing great, and you're pleasant to be around. Why is it necessary to be so unpleasant when you're just walking around as you? And the being laughed and laughed and laughed and said the flaws are necessary. The flaws are necessary because, and in part, my understanding was when you don't show the flaws, that's where you start building a cult and you're robbing people of their agency. So here's this guy, and he really was an amazing healer. So, like, I broke my pinky because I had to take the bus to get to the building where we would meet, and my son was asleep. He was 2 and he had a giant head. Okay. And I had my hand on top of his head as I was carrying him off. And my daughter was holding on to like my pants or my skirt. And I slammed my hand into the pole on the bus. I didn't realize I broke my pinky.
Mm.
By the time we got to the building, it was plum size and black and blue. And I walked up to him and I'd known him for a while, quite a while at that point. I knew he was a healer and I went, ow, I broke my pinky with my son's head. And he went, oh, owie, owie, all gone. And he waved his hand. He just did. And it went from being swollen like a plum back to perfect. No bruising. It was black and blue. And it just went, I looked at him and I'm like, okay, how do we do that? And he goes, you just do it. And I was like, and he taught me later. Like I wasn't ready to learn it. That's why he brushed me off. But it gave me that, when he gave me that, you just do it. I was like, what a dick, you know? But I would have worshiped him because he was doing shit Jesus did, woo woo, owie, owie, all gone. Well, no, he knew how to get into the cellular structure and expect it to be healed, and I was willing to be healed. So I think a lot of that doesn't get taught anymore. Like, well, it didn't really get taught then either, but you learn, right? How important is it to you to make sure people understand that sometimes those cranky moments, or when people are impassioned, or a teacher is firm and then a jerk, Do you think it's important to teach people about this? I think people still have an expectation of perfection.
I think it's important to teach about this, and there's definitely not a lot of information about it. I think there's not a lot of information about us as teachers. We are humans and understanding that. Also apologizing when we have to.
Sorry, I was an asshole today.
Yes, exactly. Apologizing.
Right.
Apologizing when we like recognizing when we're not able to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also accountability, like accountability for ourselves and people, the accountability of understanding, oh, is this person bothering me because it's them, or is it bothering me because it's a self-reflection of my own
Mm-hmm.
fault? I call myself, like, I always think that I have this like gift of whoever is on my field is either going to get better somehow or get triggered the shit out of it. There's no in between.
I know that one.
So either we're gonna be besties or we're not.
Gonna love me or you're gonna hate me.
That's right. There's one way or another. We have to recognize as teachers and students, we're all students too, right? It's like, is this person gonna hate me or is he gonna love me? Be
I
okay.
still worry about that every class. I'd be like, oh, maybe I should just be nicer. It's hard, like even in readings though, like you sometimes you don't see good news, and it's like they don't want to hear this,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, how far do I go? You know, how old are they? It's like that's usually it. How old are they and how do I deliver this information? But yeah. So anyway, let's give us the name of the book because I butchered it in the beginning again. So it's Wendy Mata.
Yes, Bruja Curendera, spells, rituals, and ancestral work from a Mexican healer and witch.
I love that. And it's out by Llewellyn Press, which, that's gold standard in the magical world. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And that's a big deal. And then you can get it on Amazon, on the Llewellyn website. I'll get a
Everywhere.
list.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everywhere.
everywhere books are sold. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Well, thank you for coming on the show, Wendy. And
Thank you
it's
for
always
having
a
me.
pleasure. We got to spend a lot of good time together today. Always a pleasure. And we'll have you on again.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. And thank you, everyone. Take care and be yourselves and shine on.
Wasn't she just wonderful? I love Wendy so much. And what a cool story that involved both the astrological side of what I do and, I'm naturally psychic. I've taken some development, but I don't do it professionally. It's just, consider it an extra if it happens in a reading because I don't focus on that. I don't. But yeah, so what a great time we had. I love her to pieces. Make sure you check out the show notes to find out where you can find her and her book. Phenomenal. She's wonderful. Such a big deal. She got picked up by Llewellyn. You know, that's just huge. But couldn't be prouder. How very cool is that? Not very many people have people come to you and say, hey, you can write whatever you want. So living the dream, she is living the dream. So let's talk about that full moon in Scorpio on May 1st. Okay, on May 1st. I'm sure there's people being dramatic about it. By the way, we have a full moon in Scorpio every single year. How it interacts with other things going on in the outside world is another story. But the full moon is always an opportunity to release so we can allow in the harvest. So full moons are always about harvesting, making room for things, releasing. And, you know, this is a good time to release resistance because the full moon in Scorpio can transmute that resistance into receptivity. Okay. Um, Once again, I'm going to say, as a progressive evolutionary astrologer, I am wanting to expand our understanding of this energy. All right. So like traditional interpretation isn't inherently wrong, but it comes from a very narrow point of view. Okay. That's why I don't understand why people think ancient technique is going to be better. Because, you know, it's founded in patriarchy. It's going to keep you stuck. And it can be true. That's where our social programming is, our cultural programming. It's where anything that to do with oppression and dominance and control stems from. So it is accurate. We can see our resistance patterns that way. We can. We can. I'm not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm just saying if that's all we're using to interpret the astrology, we're hosed. We're hosed. Okay? So when we expand our understanding of it from like a quantum level, understanding the physics of the energy, instead of looking at things as evolved and unevolved, good or bad, living in dichotomy, living in the binary, we just keep repeating the cycles. You know, that's like the old SNL skit from the 1980s, the barfly skit. It would not fly today. But a woman at the bar. I'm a barfly. My mama was a barfly. Her mama was a barfly. The excuses. I was hit, so I hit. I was screamed at, so I scream. Or the reaction formation, which is when you do the exact opposite, that doesn't fix anything either. You know, instead of being punitive, permissive. And there's a huge difference between attachment parenting or positive discipline or then permissive, right? I spent 14 years as a parenting instructor, not because I thought I knew more, because I wanted to be better. So I did it most of my children's lives as children because I wanted to be a better parent. I wanted to catch not just the big patterns, not just that, but the small little things, the emotional patterns. They can be insidious. So when we're expanding our understanding and not punishing ourselves and reigniting the oppression that's inside, because a lot of the attachment to trauma and the trauma story, the pain story, it has a lot of names, is self-oppression. It is. It's not to deny that it exists, but we over entwine it into our understanding of self instead of events that have happened, a part of our life experience. And I did it too. So when I speak about things, understand when I talk about other routes to doing it, it's because I have walked it. And where I am was considered, and I mean in life, okay, I was told I would always be broken at 15 by world-renowned experts, and that I just needed to suck it up and deal with it and build coping mechanisms. And even at 15, I was like, wow, that's kind of heavy. Are you sure? We don't know everything about the brain because it was 1985. We didn't know about neuroplasticity. We didn't know the ability of a human being to build new neural pathways. We didn't understand how the brain works. All of that information from science, neuroscience, quantum mechanics, all of that informs the astrology I do, how I interpret, and how I teach. Because isn't it convenient to the system that insists on dominance and control, patriarchy? Isn't it convenient to them to tell us we're stuck? Isn't it convenient to them to have us have these stories of oppression that we reinvigorate on a daily in how we share our stories? The moon in Scorpio, this full moon coming up, is an opportunity to examine our attachment to our oppression, regardless of what your background is, because it's in every single culture on the planet. There is not one that is blameless, that has not been oppressed or has been oppressing, because when people get power, they act as what they have seen power be. What if we can transform what power looks like? We got Pluto in our awareness since 1930. What if it's there to help us understand how to shake it up? What if it's there in our consciousness to help change and transmute power from being dominance and control into self-assuredness? What if it's there for that? What if it's there as a cushion to give us enough time to make the changes? Because it's not going to happen overnight. You can sit and say affirmations all day long. I am beautiful. I am powerful. I am strong. You can say all day long, and it won't support you if you don't do the other work. If you don't notice the subconscious in action, because it's in action all the time. It's not just subterfuge. Okay. This full moon is going to be a little interesting on the 1st. The moon slides into Scorpio on April 30th, later in the day, and it will be making an immediate square to Pluto. So that's always a dynamic day, but that's not the full moon. That is the wax and gibbous phase. And it's usually intense. So you might feel more crunchy the day before the full moon than you do on the day itself, because the day itself is released. You could be emotional. You could cry. Crying isn't bad, and crying is actually liberating because you're releasing things. That's a liberation of stuck emotions. It doesn't make you weak or bad to have those feelings. We just don't want to live in them all the time. It's like having scratchy wool outerwear. You know, if you wear that all the time, it's uncomfortable, but sometimes it's welcome on a cold winter's day. But in, 120-degree weather, probably not. So releasing is what's up on deck. Somebody asked in the Patreon if they set their intentions during the Scorpio new moon last fall, and those were in the 10th house, how do they manage the Scorpio full moon if it's falling in their 9th house? And I said, you're going to release the beliefs that hold you back from reaching your aspirations that match the 10th house. It's about releasing resistance. Now, in New Age circles, metaphysical circles, magic circles, people use the term resistance in kind of a weaponized way. They'll be like, oh, you're in resistance. Everybody has resistance. We have gravity. Every time you pick up your feet, you're resisting gravity. Resistance isn't something we blame people for, whether it's physical resistance where we're tired, have a headache. I was talking about something with a friend last night and I got a cramp in my thumb as I was talking. She went, "Oh, that's interesting timing." I said, "Isn't it?" And I said, "Well, I got to release that. Give me a second." And I released it. Yeah. I massaged the point. I breathed into it and it released. The tension released. We all have resistance. It's beating yourself up for it is more self punitive behavior. Stop it. It doesn't make you a good person. It doesn't. That's like being in church saying, "I'm such a sinner. Why would Jesus save me?" Which is absolutely the opposite thing theologically that people need to be doing. Okay, it's like no one ever read the book. Oh, so frustrating. No, I am not a practicing Christian anymore, but I was raised one. And I'm like, really? Really, people? Did you not study? Because I did. I took it seriously. I was a very, very religious child. And I am floored by what people consider correct theology. But I digress. But it's more patriarchy. Okay? It's more patriarchy. So if you want to dump it, including if you're male, because patriarchy doesn't serve men, because it's not about man versus woman. It's about dominance and control. There are women who very much support the patriarchy. It's not about gender. It's not about sexuality. It is not about culture or economic status. It is literally all about dominance and control, period. And this Scorpio full moon is an opportunity to release some of the chains that are self-imposed. Those are the easiest ones to release. Some that are from society, culture, family beliefs. You're not going to get all of it. And you may not even be picking what it is. It may just come up on deck. It's coming from under the surface and bubbling up. You may notice where you've healed, how far you've come. It can be very, very positive. It does not have to be stress fest. Where you tune your attention is what you will notice. If you are always looking for the shit show, that's what you're going to see. If you are always looking for the harm, that is what you will see. If you are always looking for the damage or potential damage, that is what you will see. And you'll be like, "Laurie, but I've been through a lot, so of course I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." I get it. I stayed there for a long while. But remember, 50-50 is a coin toss. So if we only sit with the coin toss of 50-50, it can go either way. What if you look for how it might be in a good way? If you want to heal, what does it feel like to be at ease, to have the stress reduced, to be able to go to sleep because you're tired, not just because you're exhausted? What is it like to find things you use on the daily basis, like your coffee cup, your keys? I remember during the last leg of my healing journey, because I tried from 15 up until 38, pretty much on my own, because I had run into some really bad therapists, and not all therapists are bad. And all that time, especially from about 29 to 38, a good 10 years, I examined every modality I could find. Everyone. Years, body electronics, Reiki. You know, I've been attuned to Reiki since, 1999? So have my kids. You know, that's why in live streams I offer it up if people want it. I don't send just to send it. You have to want it for it to be there. But the minute you don't even have to type it, okay? You can just say to yourself, "I want that," and it'll go to you. If you don't, you don't get it. I have parameters around how it's sent because it requires permission. I respect people's boundaries. I tried everything. Closed practices, deep work, Tonglen, a ton of stuff. And I was at my end. I hit a pain wall. And the thing I knew from point holding is when you get to that level of pain, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, there's an opportunity to heal. And so I gave it one last shot, and I had created a modality for myself. I called it hyper awareness training. I took hypervigilance and turned it around to hyper awareness so I could notice the patterns, release the patterns as fast as I could observe them. And I found a wonderful PhD psychologist to monitor my work because I knew I couldn't do it by myself. I needed somebody to, it's like having a spotter in a gym, right? And it worked. It took 5 years. It was a long run. And so I understand when I say the diagnosis was one of the worst my PhD psychologist had seen in a 30-year career. I am not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. It was one of the reasons people said, you're just going to have to cope when I was 15. Those people still have nightmares about what happened to me. I didn't want to live that way. I never wanted to live that way. I didn't want the nightmares. I didn't want an overactive nervous system. I didn't want to always be on edge. I didn't want to go without sleep for 3 days. I can go without sleep. You guys know it, but I don't like to. I want to sleep because I'm tired. And it was repatterning the brain. Scorpio energy is about rebirth. You can rise like the phoenix out of the ashes, but you don't have to burn up all the time to do it. There's ways to do it. And you have that opportunity this week coming. May 1st, when that moon forms full. And I'll talk about how we can address that house by house in the Awake Space patron only podcast. I'll probably do it as a live stream, to be fair. I'll probably do it as a live stream because I'm trying to get ready for my trip. I haven't even started packing yet. I got to take equipment and all kinds of things. I just want you to know not only how grateful I am for every single person here listening, to the people you share the information with, whether it's through the podcast or just saying, hey, I heard this today. Don't keep me a secret. And don't think that there's people you know who won't want it. That you'll be amazed. Because it is my honor to be of service. Because I know how good life can be. I know you can find reasonable contentment. It's not about off the charts peak experiences, although those are fun too. But they're hard to maintain. It can be exhausting because it's running adrenaline as well. But finding a measure of ease, not to have your mind running 500 miles an hour all the time, not second guessing yourself all the time, not seeing yourself disfigured in a mirror, looking at yourself and thinking, they're all right. They're pretty good. Having the confidence to know that you made it and you can make it through again. To give yourself the opportunity to just enjoy the breeze on your skin, the aroma of the spring flowers, the flavors of a good meal, the softness of a nice blankie, the joy in children's laughter, whether they're yours or not, the purrs of a cat, the snuggles of a dog. When we recognize that this life is a rare and precious thing, and that we are spirit made matter, That's where life begins to get really good. We can intellectually know it, but until we live it step by step, and sometimes those steps are grueling. But when we can do it, it seems almost miraculous. But it's not. It's a logical conclusion to a set path that we carve for ourselves. It is a logical conclusion to understanding our agency. It is a logical conclusion to using our free will. And with that, I actually had a question last week on the podcast. I'm going to pull it up because it was in the Spotify comment section. I think it really sums it up. Somebody asks, C is their username, like the letter C. Just curious if our chart show as much as it does both individually and collective, how much does free will affect the macro versus the micro? So first of all, a mundane chart is not the same as an individual chart. It's not, because when you interpret anything, you need context. So an astrology chart on its own is an event at a time on a day in a specific place. Okay. We know that a building, and you can have a chart for a building, is going to have a different physical experience than a human being. All right. When I'm looking out at events, I'm using possibility and probability. So it's less of a physical object. It's more of how can this energy express out in the world? All right. World events, weather. There's not a lot of consciousness with weather. Okay. It's not deciding, like there's a tornado isn't going, should I touch down or not? It's doing what tornadoes do. Right. Whereas a human being does have free will. But even in the mundane, notice when I'm giving my predictions, I say could happen, might happen, possibility of, because I'm looking at possibility, which is a wide field, and probability. What's the most likely thing to happen? It doesn't mean it will. It doesn't mean it will. There's always a chance it won't, because nothing is 100%. Anybody saying so doesn't understand math or statistics. Thinking of a particular person in mind. They think they're my nemesis. I'd have to actually care what they think. But with human beings, and I have other podcasts, if you kind of search through the old episodes and look up free will, there's probably 20, 30 episodes from the last 5 years I've talked about it. But free will is our kind of our bugbear, because we think we have free will. But if you weren't trained to use your free will, then you're going to follow a more narrow pattern. Free will can take us off the realm of possibility from one end to the other, whereas if we follow our training, we might go here to here to here, logical steps. If we use our free will, we can sometimes jump from one end of probability to the next. Very disconcerting when it happens. Okay. Will is represented by the sun, and it's enacted by Mercury, Venus, and Mars. And if we haven't been trained to use our free will, we're making a set of decisions based on social cultural programming. That's why when we deconstruct, we want to renovate. We don't want to knock down the retaining wall. We want to shore it up with better materials. Maybe we need to put in a little rebar, right? So free will does change things, but I'm not into determination. I'm not into destiny. Events are going to happen. That's part of life. Using your free will does not give you a perfect experience. But you might be able to get out of it faster. You might, because you don't know everything. You can't. It doesn't make you omnificent or omniscient. It makes you, or omnipotent. It makes you able to see things with more clarity and make better decisions. Period. But when people say, well, they use their free will to make the wrong decision, well, you can. But most times what people are doing is not making decisions using their free will. They're using their social programming, because you say, but I'm a rebel, Laurie. Yeah, that's a social program. Yeah. You go look at the uniforms people wear. I'm going to show you where I stand on an issue. Social programming, whether it's positive or negative, it's still there. You can use your free will when you have training with it to greater extent. It's not going to lead to perfection. So the astrology doesn't change regardless of whether we're looking at it from a determinist point of view, a progressive evolutionary point of view. The astrology remains the same. That's why I say it expresses in a spectrum from destiny thinking and determined thinking. And people, and this is a joke, but I used to say, well, there's basic bitch astrology. And then there's where you widen the field and you become more self-actualized, more self-realized, more self-determined. You create yourself using the free will. So it's a spectrum. But Aries is going to be Aries from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. Pisces is going to be Pisces from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum. Mars is not always war. Mars is not always aggression. Mars is action. From war to support. War to building things. It's easy to tear stuff apart. It doesn't take a genius to blow shit up. It takes a genius to build it. And if only the leaders in this country understood how they are not geniuses by causing destruction. That we're watching the death knells of dominance and control. And that's going to take decades. And no, it's not going to be crazy for everybody for decades, but it takes decades to dismantle. It's been being dismantled, and then it needs to be reshaped. And if you've ever built anything, sometimes or made anything, sometimes you make a mistake and you got to pull it back and you got to start over a little bit in a spot. Like when you crochet, sometimes you have to rip out stitches. Doesn't make you bad at what you do. Noticing the flaw before you finish it makes you good at what you do. I hope that answered your question. If it didn't, feel free to clarify in the comments this week. I want to thank every single one of you for listening to this program. I hope this week you find vitality, your value, and peace within. I'm Laurie Rivers, and I'll talk to you next week. Hopefully on a Monday.